This is another compelling work by Russ Docken entitled My Hour Has Come. And the setting here is in AD 25. And Jesus had just endured the so-called Great Temptation when he was wet with the dews of Mount Hermon and spent 40 days on that mount of trial and triumph in confronting his arch enemies. And he returned from Mount Hermon and met up with his boyhood friend, John Zebedee, the elder Zebedee's son, and they journeyed to Jerusalem for the Feast of the Tabernacles and tarried there for about a week. And Jesus, leaving John behind, said, I must return on my own, and journeyed back up the Jordan and arrived back in Capernaum. So the next morning, Jesus went into Zebedee's bookshop and went to his chest containing his personal effects and his tools, which he kept there, and put on his apron and said, it behooves me to keep busy while I wait upon my Father's business. And he worked for a couple of months there in the boat shop, and beside him, Russ has depicted here his brother James. And it was during this close association of 2 months where James and Jesus worked together that James, even though later on in the Master's ministry, James harbored serious doubts about the mission of his elder brother, this intimate 2-month association forever dispelled any real doubts he had about his brother's mission on earth. So during this final 2 months, when Jesus spent his last time on earth working with his hands, he spent most of his time working on the interiors of the larger craft. And he was a master craftsman, of course, but he was also a meticulous worker. He didn't waste time on trifles, but when something had to be done, he did it right. And he seemed to take great pleasure in a job well done. And as anyone who's worked with wood or admired lovely work with wood, you could well imagine, especially on the interior of a craft, how lovely some of his work must have indeed been. So as time passed, rumors came to Capernaum and all over Galilee of one John who was baptizing in the Jordan. And they listened with great interest to these stories, but Jesus just kept on working until John had finally arrived to the point of Pella, which is south of the Sea of Galilee, along the River Jordan, as we know. And one day, he came into the boat shop and put down his apron and simply announced, my hour has come. And he went to see John in the Jordan. And this depicts that very moment. But one more thing that's important here, and maybe getting it back again to Russ's depiction of Jesus, during all this time when Jesus traveled up and down the lands and met all sorts of people, very few of them ever made the connection of this earlier man they met with the teacher who was to become known as Jesus of Galilee. And there was a reason for that, because all the way during this period, he was becoming transformed. And there was another reason for this. Jesus purposely obscured his career from one point and the other because he did not want to build up a too impressive or an intimidating body of work. He was to appear on earth as an average man so that the people would gladly hear his message and to bring the spiritual tidings to the captive souls of his day. And that transformation was complete as he came down with the shining spiritual glory after his triumph on Mount Hermon.